There's three different perspectives. I don't know where the stands on that, but I know there are these three different perspectives of pre-tribulation, mid-tribulation, and post-tribulation. So it depends on the person's perspective. If they're going out to prepare the world to the countryside, then they obviously have either a mid-trib or a post-trib mindset.
Yeah, no, I've heard those things. Yeah, I've heard that, but I don't think I'll have no idea. Okay.
All right, let's come back together. Let's come back together. All right, so we're going to talk about the mark of the beast today. Okay. Why this is important for end times. And then what SDAs believe the mark of the beast is. Okay, so SDAs, we have a very, very unique view of this. That's very distinct from what other people think. Then, okay? And then why? I don't know if any of you guys know do you guys know any like friends of yours or family friends that actually went to the countryside? They moved everything? No?
No, but I know people that have bought land already. Like
they have bought land.
Yeah.
So they're preparing.
Yeah.
Okay? So this is actually a pretty common, well, not as common probably nowadays, but yeah. You know, even Napa Korean church, it originally started with this. That's what I heard. Yeah. So it's like a bunch of people going to the countryside, but it just developed. And then now it's like, oh, we got to move again. Okay? But I'm sure if you grew up SDA, right, you've seen maybe families or you've seen people who did this and you're like, why are they doing that? Again, you're going to have a better understanding today. Whether you agree with that or not, that's up to you. Okay? But at least you'll have a better understanding. Oh, these are not just crazy people. But, oh, there's a reason why they're doing the things that they're doing. Okay, why some SDAs do this. Okay? All right, so let's go into it. We're going to start from Revelation chapter 12. All right, I'll read first. Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough. And they lost their place in war. So this is a great battle between God and Satan, basically. All right? Or it's alluding to that great battle. And we call that the great controversy. The great dragon was hurled down. That ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. So it tells us who the dragon is. Dragon is Satan. And so fighting, obviously, then Michael's angels, it's representing God's side. He was hurled into the earth and his angels with him. Okay.
Can you give a quick headline on just who wrote Revelation?
It was written by an apostle named John. He was one of the disciples. We think it was written around about 90 AD, perhaps. So he was the only disciple that wasn't martyred.
Okay.
So he was exiled instead in an island called Patmos. And so we think there he had a vision of what's going to happen in the future. Yeah. All right. Let's continue to go. And then this is just the artist's depiction. All right, let's see what happens next.
At a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed within the sun, with the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Okay, so this is probably represents God's people or God. Okay, let's keep going.
Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its heads. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth.
Again, who is the dragon again? Satan. And then we see the third of the star. It's talking about probably the third of the angels that he deceived as well. Okay, so again, we get a depiction of God or God's people and Satan. But she's pregnant as well. So she does not look pregnant at all. But this is an artist's depiction of it. Okay, something like this. All right, let's keep going. Greg? Oh, is it? No, Minu. Is your turn? Oh, you're red. Okay, Greg?
The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that it might devour her child the moment he was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. And her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. The woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1,260 days.
Does this look familiar at all? Okay, we go immediately because we already studied Daniel. We go, oh, it goes back to Daniel, and then again, this dragon, Satan, and then when did this 1,260 days come up again? When it came to the little horn. Do you guys remember that? So again, we see, hey, there's parallel between Daniel and Revelation. Okay, we're gonna see more of it a little bit later. Okay, but so far, what do we see? This lady's pregnant and she's about to give birth to a king, which represents Jesus. And then the dragon is about to just wait until pregnancy comes out so she could just kill the baby. Okay, he could just kill the baby. So it's talking about how the devil is trying very hard to get rid of the Messiah altogether. And we saw that, right? Remember when Jesus was born, who tried to kill Jesus? Herod, right? Remember that story? Okay. So we see, again, this concept of this kind of stuff going on. Okay? But we see that the child was snatched up, and then the woman, not the child, okay, the woman fled into the wilderness, and she could be taken care of for 1,260 days. Again, it goes back to what we talked about, Daniel chapter 7. Sorry, it's not 12:30, it's 12:60. That's my fault. Time times half a time, and we talked about this. The holy people will be delivered into the little horn for a time, half a time. And we talked about how this represents the Pope as well. And we talked about this. Okay, how for 1,260 years or days, how the Pope was in power. Okay. So again, who is the dragon? It represents Satan. But we also see that Satan uses the Catholic Church and the Pope to carry out his plans. Okay. And the woman represents God's people, true church, or Christians. Okay, so that's what we have so far going on. All right. Let's go to Revelation chapter 12. Hannah?
And from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river to overtake the woman and sweep her away with the torrent. But the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of his mouth.
Okay, so again, it's talking about just different ways persecuting the Christians and things like that. Okay, let's keep going.
Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands and hold fast the testimony of Jesus.
Okay, and so again, we see the dragon attacking God's people. Okay, and this is what we call the remnant. And we're going to come back to this concept of the remnant a little bit later. Okay, but the characteristic is they are ones who keep God's commandments and hold fast to their testimony about Jesus. So they believe in the gospel of Jesus, but they also keep the 10 commandments as well. Okay, we're going to come back to that concept. Okay, let's go to Revelation chapter 13 now. Let's see what happens next. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Okay, so again, we have dragon, and the dragon keeps attacking God's people, basically. Okay, but something else happens. All right. Is it Tracy?
The dragon stood on the shore of the sea and saw a beast coming out of the sea, and it had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name.
Okay, so again, we have the same thing. With the dragon had 10 heads and all the 10 crowns, all of that stuff too. But we see the dragon, but another animal comes out. Okay, let's continue on. Let's see what the beast looked like.
The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and a great authority.
Okay. Where did we see this before? Okay, in Daniel. Okay? Out of the sea, what 4 animals came out? Do you remember? What are the 4 animals that came out of the sea? Same thing, out of the sea, right? Leopard, lion, bear. And then the 4th was what? A monster. Okay, so again, 7 heads and horns. And so when you see that, it's like a monster. Okay? So this is exactly what you see. So again, do you see the connection between Daniel and Revelation? Okay, so it's not just random people saying, oh yeah, these are together. No, we clearly see the 1260 and the whole same beast. We see the same thing. Okay, so this is what we call the composite beast. It's a composite of all the, I know it looks really creepy. But again, has a lion's head, leopard, and bear. Okay, so again, there's a relationship between Daniel and Revelation. You see that. All right, so there's dragon, and then again, this beast comes out of the sea. Okay, let's see what happens.
One of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound, and the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast.
Okay, so this one of the heads of this beast, it had a fatal wound. But all of a sudden, it's supposed to die, but it just recovers miraculously. And so all the people goes, whoa, that's amazing. Okay, again, we said this beast, in the end, it represents, we think, the Catholic Church and the Pope. We talked about this, right? And so that's exactly what we see. We saw the Pope in 1798, when the French Revolution happened. Okay, Napoleon told one of the generals, hey, bring the Pope out. No more of this religious power anymore. Okay. But what do we see with the Pope now? We see that the Pope regained its power, and that Pope has a lot of control and has the Vatican and everything else. Does that make sense? So this is exactly what we see with here. Okay, so in 1798, had a fatal wound, but now it's been healed. And because of that, the whole world is filled. And so the whole world, again, whatever you think about the Catholic Church, they love the Pope. Okay, especially obviously Catholics, they love the Pope. But not only that, there's many people who believe that the Pope he's one of like the wise men. Okay, so again, we think that the dragon represents Satan, and then the Satan gives this composite beast power, and we believe this is talking about the Catholic Church and the Pope. Okay, let's see what happens.
People worship the dragon because they've been given authority to the beast, and they also worship the beast and ask, who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it?
Okay. So look at all the descriptions. Okay. The beast was given a power to utter proud words and blaspheme and exercise its authority for, once again, 42 months. What is 42 months? In days. 1260. And this is, again, ta-da! It goes back to 1260. Again, for 1260 years, the Pope was given power. Again, it's talking about this concept over and over again. So again, it seems like, hey, this is the Pope. Okay, going back. It opened its mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and his dwelling place and those who live in heaven. It was given power to wage war against God's holy people and to conquer them. It was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. So again, we think this beast, it is the Catholic Church and the Pope. And here's the similarities between the little horn. We saw how the little horn represents the Pope. And so can we see the same exact similarities? Again, they both spoke great things. They both were given into hands time. The saints were given into his hands time times half a time. Allowed exercise authority for 12 months. So same thing. They made war with the saints. Okay, they had authority. And then they received worship. And then remember, it changed the time and the times and the laws. How the Pope changed from Sunday to the Sabbath. From the Sabbath into Sunday worship. Okay, and how they changed the Ten Commandments. Okay, so again, we're seeing similarities. And we go, oh, again, we think the composite beast, again, it represents the Catholic Church and the Pope. Okay. What do you guys think? I want you guys to go back to your groups. Are you convinced that this is the Pope? And that you see the similarities of 7 and 13? Or do you think, no, people are just looking too much into it. no, this is not, they're not the same thing. What do you think it is instead? All right, go for it really quick. Just your thoughts.
The little horn is that verses. These are the verses, right? Just the shows here. Or is that from the little horn? Versus Daniel. Verse 20, 25, right?
Right.
They're just doing the comparison.
Possibly. When was Daniel written?
We know now it's Marcus.
I wouldn't call that
Well,
great.
now I know.
Most likely it's before.
Overall, yes, maybe minor. It's all in interpretation.
Now it's just like 40 for 42.
That was the first one I looked at.
Like, they people make more.
It all has to be.
Giving me to the whole. I haven't been looking at this. I just put my glasses.
The death rate is a little bit, the math adds up if you go back to that.
Genesis, can you close the door?
Because he's talking in months and he's talking in which is
That's enough. And the similarity between times, and half a time, and the 42 most correlate pretty funny.
All right, let's come back together. Any questions or clarifications I can make before we continue? Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did John read Daniel?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I was hyper obsessed with the book of Daniel.
Yes.
And then I had a vision.
Absolutely.
It might highly correlate to the book of Daniel.
Absolutely. That's definitely a possibility. Or God had given him a vision that actually connects the two.
I think we were.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to-
No.
Okay, so we were saying like well, at least I said this. The most interesting part is just the calculation. If he's talking in months and he's talking in like a different metric, times time, but it all links back to that one
Yeah,
sentence of
yeah.
40 days equals 40 years, so
Yeah.
1 day equals 1 year.
Yeah.
So the linkage of the calculations between the two is interesting because they're speaking in different kind of time units.
Yeah. But he does use, I have to go back.
Does he use months?
I think he does use 1,260 days as well. And then he uses both 42 months and also 1,200. I have to look back.
Yeah.
But there is correlation
Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
Okay, any other clarification question? Okay, if what we have so far is correct, what we have so far is we have two different beasts. One, we see the dragon, and this is clearly Satan because the Bible says so. Okay, and then we have this composite beast that we saw in Daniel chapter 7, and we saw pretty clearly, I feel like, that in Daniel chapter 7, it represented a lot of different, of course, like human kingdom, right? Anti-God's kingdom, and then that accumulated in the little horn. Okay, and again, we see the same thing here, doing the same thing. So we think this is the Pope. Now, there's another animal that comes, and this is where it gets really, really interesting. So far we have the dragon, and then we have this crazy composite beast-looking thing, but we have another animal that comes out.
Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. And it had 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon.
Okay. So again, it's not the composite beast came out of where?
Yeah, the
Out of the ocean. But this comes out from
the earth.
the earth. Okay, and later we'll talk about what that means. Okay. But what kind of animal is it?
Like a lamb.
It's a lamb, but it speaks like a dragon. So on the outside, it's very innocent, but on the inside, again, dragon meaning going back to, it's like it has satanic, devilish, some kind of thing. Does that make sense? So, again, okay. Art again. Okay, so let's see what happens with the second beast. Uh-huh.
It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed, and it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people.
Okay, so again, there's the first beast, and there's a second beast, and it lends power from the first beast, but it points everybody else back to the first beast and say, worship these beasts. Okay, let's continue on. Greg?
Because of the signs it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived.
Again, it's saying the same thing. The basic idea is, hey, the second beast is basically trying to support the first beast and saying, hey, everybody worship the first beast. Okay, now, who is this beast? Now, this is where it gets very, very interesting. Okay, we know that, number one, when? It rises after the papacy recovers. Okay, does that make sense? So remember how we talked about how the first beast, we think it's the Catholic Church or the Pope. We said, what? It got inflicted a deadly wound, but it recovered again. So, and then the second beast comes out after it was recovered. Does that make sense? So we know that it has to, whoever this beast is, it has to come after the Catholic Church gain power once again. Okay? Next. Out of the earth. Earth means wilderness. Okay? So it came out of kind of like from nowhere. Okay? There's power. And then appearance. It seems innocent at first. Okay? It starts out weak, but it becomes more and more and more and more and more and more powerful. Okay? And what does it do? It makes people worship the first beast. Okay? So, is there a power, is there a nation after the Pope recovered? Okay? And then it started out small, but it became bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it's a super nation.
The Vatican?
Huh?
The Vatican?
No, not the Vatican. It can't be the Vatican because the first beast is the Catholic Church. So is there a nation?
America?
America! Very good. Okay. So, we think the second nation represents America. Right? Like America land itself, it was like a wilderness. There was like nothing here. It started out small, and then it was like they were running away from from England, and they were small and nothing, and eventually they just grew up, and ta-da, superpower. Okay? So again, we think maybe the second beast represents America. So let's see what the second beast does. And now we're going to get to the mark of the beast. Now this is interesting. Okay.
The second beast was given power to breathe to the image of the first beast so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads so that they cannot buy or sell unless they have the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name.
Okay. So, again, we see mark of the beast. Or this is what we call mark of the beast. To receive the mark. Okay, so the second beast says, you must worship the first beast. And if you worship this beast, then what's going to happen? then you're going to receive a mark on your hand or on your forehead. Okay? And then what can you do with this? You could either, if you don't have this, then what's the consequence? You can't buy or sell. So it's kind of like, well, okay, let's say like somebody comes up to you and say, hey, you have to worship something, or if not, you can't buy or sell. What's going to happen to you? You're going to die pretty quickly. Because if you can't buy or sell anymore, like we're dependent on, does that make sense? So going back, this is why SDAs, they go to the countryside. They don't want to receive the mark of the beast. So they go into countryside and they become farmers, or they learn to grow things so that they don't have to receive the mark of the beast. They can be sustainable on their own. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, again, whether that's wise or not, that's up to you, what you think about that. But at least it makes sense why they do that. Okay, let's continue.
This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. The number is 666.
Okay, and this is where we get, like this is the demon's number and things like that. Again, all of these is in the Bible. Okay. So some people think, oh, literally they're gonna have they're gonna have a mark 666. Some people think it's gonna be a barcode. Some people think it's gonna be a chip. We don't know. We don't know the form of what it's gonna look like. But again, it seems like if you worship this beast, then you'll be fine being assimilated into this society. But once this happens, and you don't want to worship the beast, then you can't be part of this community or this, because you can't buy or sell. What are you going to do? You're just going to let your kids die? No, then again, you got to go somewhere and live on your own. And so some SDAs, they go, oh, you see, we just have to do it ahead of time. Or not just SDAs, there's some other Christians who go, okay, we have to be prepared ahead of time. Okay. So again, what's the thing that you see over and over again? It's what? You have to worship the beast. So this is what SDA say. SDA say, oh, it has to come with the idea of worship. Right? Because it's all about worshiping this beast. Okay, what did the first beast, what did the first beast change? The Catholic Church, when it comes to worship? The Sabbath. Okay, the Sabbath. They changed it from Sabbath to Sunday worship. Okay? So they go, oh, and again, we see this idea of worship over and over again. Okay, so therefore, somehow, we think, America and Catholic Church, I feel like I'm doing like a conspiracy theory like lecture here. I know it seems like it, but again, that's what SDAs believe, okay? So America and Catholic Church, somehow, they're going to join forces, okay? And they're going to come up with a national Sunday law. By the way, and what we mean by national Sunday law is you must rest on Sunday and you must worship. You must go to worship. So that will be mandated. Not like a, if you don't want to do that? Oh, that's fine. No, it will be like a law. If you don't do that, you will get arrested and things like that. Okay? So the people, they believe, once the National Sunday Law comes, then you will receive the mark of the beast. So if you follow this law, then ta-da, you receive and you'll be fine. You'll be able to live in this world, everything else. But if you do not, if you go, no, I'm going to keep the 10 Commandments. Sabbath is Sabbath. Jesus said, on Sabbath you shall rest, not Sunday. So you go, oh, no, I'm not going to do it. Then, Then again, you need to go to the countryside and you need to start doing all of that so that you are prepared for this time. Okay, so that's why some SDAs, that's why they do that, preparing for this end times. Okay. By the way, there's some parts of the world, okay, even in the USA, even when during SDAs started in the 1800s, even now some cities, they have what we call blue law. So basically they're mandated, it's not as extreme as this, but where they close down stores. Okay? So even like a couple hundred years ago, they used to close down the whole city so that people can go worship. Now, they didn't like kill them and persecute them and these kind of things. Okay? But again, we have seen this. You go, oh, this is never going to happen and things like that. But again, we saw glimpses of this already happening. There's some other people who believe this is already kind of happening subtly. Okay? For example, do any of you guys, most of us, most of us, we don't work on Sundays already. It's already, we think when it comes to Sunday, we're like, oh, that's a day of rest. Okay? So again, what was that? Yeah. But they're doing that because they believe that's Sabbath for them. Yeah. So, but yeah, we see, they're already kind of doing that. Okay. So, and then again, some people say, oh, this is impossible. How are they going to regulate people? But again, we saw with COVID, pretty clearly, the government could regulate people in the name of safety. So maybe, I'm not saying that's, like, these are all correlated. I'm just saying it's not impossible. Okay? All right. So, this is, okay, so again, Mark of the Beast. SDAs believe, I'm not saying Christians believe this, but specifically Seventh-day Adventists, this is what they believe. And that's why Sabbath is very, very important, especially in the end times. Of course, it's important because it's in the Ten Commandments, but not only that, because we're in the end times, again, when the Sunday law comes, if you don't keep the Sabbath now, what makes you think that you're going to keep the Sabbath then? And that's kind of the concept. Okay? Any questions, clarifications?
How do they envision, I know it's a smaller percentage, but like Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, that all live within America?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Not sure.
Like how does that play into the mandated worship and rest?
Like, again, with COVID, it didn't matter what, whatever it was, whatever religion you believe in. And of course, there were people who sued the government and things like that. But for the most part, like all of these things didn't matter in the name of safety. And so perhaps they'll create some kind of one world nation or something like that. And in the name of safety, I don't know.
Yeah.
And also the Bible doesn't say specifically either. Yeah. But really interesting book is, do you guys know it was a really famous book about Left Behind series.
Oh, yeah, I've read
Some of you guys,
almost all of them.
Yeah, I read all of it. Okay. So, some of the theology, definitely I don't agree with. But like that book shows a pretty like realistic, I feel like, depiction of how this comes to be. Like the mark of the beast. It's not, obviously, it's not on Sabbath, but this idea of like having one world, and then like one government, like controlling the whole world, and how it does that. Yeah. So again, I don't know how it's going to happen, but it seems like the Bible is indicating that somehow. Okay?
But globally, not.
Globally.
Yeah.
Globally. Not just America. Yeah.
Okay.
Globally. This will happen globally. Yeah. So everybody will have a chance to, whether, again, you're going to either worship God or you're going to worship the beast. Okay. Really quickly, okay, again, we talked about how if we look at Revelations 12, the people who are God's people, again, they keep the commandments of God. Again, it goes back to the idea of commandment of God. Okay, and that's why, again, Seventh-day Adventists, they call themselves the remnant. Okay. And again, I looked, and there before me was the Lamb standing on the mount. With him, 144,000. We believe this is just not a exact number, but just a representative number, who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. So either you're going to receive the mark of the beast or the mark of God. Okay, depending on who you worship, what you're going to worship. Okay, let me just show you one more. And then after all of this crazy fiasco happens, one more thing happens. Then I saw another angel flying in midair, and he had an eternal gospel to proclaim those who live on the earth. To every nation, tribe, language, and people, he said in a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of the judgment has come. Worship him." Again, because all these people are worshiping the beast, right? And so the angel comes and warns them, judgment is coming. You need to worship God, not the beast. So everybody in the end is going to worship something. You're either going to worship God. If you're not worshiping God, you're going to be worshiping Satan. Nobody in the middle, no one neutral. Okay? But it says, worship him who made the heavens, earth, and the sea, and the springs of water. Okay? So this points to where? Genesis chapter 1, where it talks about how God created the heavens and the earth and everything else too, right? Everything. But also, this, if you go into the 10 commandments, it points to the 4th commandment. Okay? Why? Because if this exact phrasing is what you see. On Sabbath, worship your God, who made the heavens, earth, and the seas, and the springs of water. So again, SDAs believe, you see, again, the end times, when it comes to worship, it has to do with the Sabbath. It's going to come into play. All right. Questions or clarifications? I know that was a lot of material. Okay. Questions or clarifications?
When
Yes.
they say you're going to worship the beast, there's an